Concurrency reads like this, guys. I call this the beautiful form. And the reason I call it the beautiful form is I call it the race to the finish line. And here's what it means. This concurrency reads like this, and here's what it says. If I sell my house before you sell your house, then I win. So, if I'm the buyer, and I have a concurrency written on my purchase agreement, okay, it says this, Mr. Seller, you continue to market your home as if you don't even have this agreement with me. But you do have an agreement, and the reason we have an agreement is this. I am going to sell my home. In fact, I know I'm going to sell it. The other 4 houses on the street sold in a day, and I'm going to sell mine too. But I want to know a few things, and here's what I want to know from you, Mr. Seller. I want to know what price I have to pay. I also want to know that we've agreed to a price and that you've agreed to on it. I want to have agreed to a future closing date that we could maybe change. I want to agree that you're okay with my financing. I want you to agree to this. I want you to agree to that. And we have a total agreement, because what's going to happen here, Mr. Seller, is I'm going to price my home and it's going to sell and I'm going to buy yours. And if you sell yours before I sell mine, all you got to do is pick up the phone, or in here it says in writing, and you call me and say, I sold my home 5 minutes ago. Sorry, Mr. Stoffer. Too bad, too sad. You don't get the house. But if I call you first, Mr. Seller, and I say, hey, Mr. Seller, I sold my house 5 minutes ago. I am now removing my concurrency and I'm moving forward on a contract. Then I get your house and I don't care what else is going on. Did you follow that? So it's a race to the finish. Now I got a couple questions for you. What's good about that?
I just think of it as a pre-negotiated offer. You understand all the terms and
right.
You know what you're getting into, and the second you get your house under contract, it's just you're in contract.
Under contract. But what's good? Why is this good? What creates, Robin?
Motivates the buyer.
Motivates the buyer. Let's get her done.
The other thing, it keeps the house on the market. It's not laying in the computer as contingent.
It doesn't hurt the seller.
Right.
To get this, the question that I would have is, if everything, I can tell you that I would accept one of these on my house, because I can still go sell my house to somebody else, and it doubles my chances of it being sold. I'll never accept one of these. And I accept one of these almost at any time, because I know the buyer's motivated on the other end, because he knows that all he has to do is get this call. It's sold. You know what I mean? So he's very motivated. Will he price his home better? Yeah. Do I have to worry about pricing my home better here? I'm not in danger of anything. If I can now here's there's one more thing that happens with the concurrency. Let's go back to the guy that can afford to buy the house. You know what he might do? Gary, I can't take this kind of pressure wondering if I'm going to get the house. Let's just move forward. Is there any way we can do that? Well, Mr. Buyer, we can do that. Let's just put the closing date out further and see if we can get him to agree to a later closing date, giving you a little more time to sell your home. But you got to buy it if yours isn't sold. Everything changes with this.
On the concurrency, you're still in the MLS.
You're still in the MLS,
Not contingent.
and nobody can tell there's a concurrency on it, and nor should they care.
I have a contract with you at $300,000, but in the meantime, a guy comes in at $325,000.
Right.
What happens here?
Who calls who first?
In other words, I'm the seller.
Right.
I accepted this concurrency.
Right.
At $300,000. In the meantime, Joe Blow comes in at $325,000.
$325,000. I like that. That's a good story.
I have to call you and say, hey, I got a better offer.
No.
I can go ahead.
All I got to, you can sign it and call them and say, I just signed a contract on another house. By the way, let me say this from the seller's position. What can the seller do, Ed? I'm going to answer it for you.
Go ahead.
What can the seller do? Anything he wants. There's no laws, but there's rules we have to play by.
What I wanted to mention is I think sometimes contingent offers are enticing to sellers because the price is
Yes.
can be so high. So can you talk about how you would talk a seller through not accepting that because it's really nothing?
Well, let's assume, I'm going to take an assumption, you're right. Sometimes the offers are higher on your contingent offers, and they would be on this. They also might be on this here also. This one I'm not going to let them sign anyway. When I say not allow them to sign, listen to me, I really have taken control, haven't I? They're going to sign with me telling them I think it's a bad idea. And if they sign it, it's a bad idea. And when they get the repercussions of this, it's still a bad idea. This one here doesn't matter so much. Okay?
So you just have to talk them through the risk.
Right.
If the buyer won't.
So in this one here, the home stays on the market. The buyer, it's he who calls the other person first wins. That's the name of the game. Okay. I'm going to tell you a bad story, and you'll understand why I feel so strongly. Bill.
Legally, how does one notify the buyer of the example you first used? You say call them.
I do it in two ways. In here it says in writing. I would immediately call them, and that usually represents a contact. Okay? I would be very aggressive in notifying. So I would call them, email them, text them, make sure it's everywhere for them to know. And please ask for a response that they got this immediately. Okay? Because if they don't get it, they don't answer the phone, they don't look at their text, and they're in the hospital, they represent, you need to make a contact to that person. Let them, because when you contact the agent, you've effectively contacted the seller. Now it's his problem. Okay? When you're in that fiduciary position.
So some of these come across as contingent on buyer's house closing, right?
Yeah.
So what point then if I'm representing the seller, at what point does their house actually go into contingent status? Would it be when they have a signed contract on their house, or would it not be until close?
Well, once the sale contingency is removed, it's contingent upon a variety of issues. It might be financing, inspections, living till the day they close,
So a signed contract
things like that.
would pull it out of
Yeah,
it.
right.
Okay.
Hey, I'm going to tell you one last story, and then we'll get out of here. And this is to really drill this home, because we get careless and we cave in. I do it myself, so I cave in. I haven't had an offer on a property for 6 months and only one showing, and I get an offer and it's contingent, it has 48-hour bump, and I'm like, I don't want to lose this deal.
Yeah.
And the next thing I cave in and I pay a price on it. And I did, by the way, a couple times.
There's something else that you can do too. If it's concurrency, and let's say, to use your example, Ed, for $300,000 and an offer comes in at $280, let's just say. Your phone call to the other agent could be, hey, we got another offer. Do they want to remove the concurrency and close?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, this is where it's negotiation. Let me give you an example. Ed?
What he just said is different than what I'm saying. You want to remove your concurrency or close, but you're closing on the old contract. I got a better offer.
Okay.
No, but I said if the second offer was lower,
Yeah.
you don't have to tell them what the other offer is.
no, I
Correct, but
understand.
I'm just saying on the flip side,
Yeah.
Right.
it can allow you to go back and negotiate harder.
I've done that many times, many times. I have an offer for $300,000. $300,000 that's a concurrency. Now I'm not going to have this one because I'm not going to allow it in the first place. So I got a concurrency. I know it's $300,000, and I get an offer for $250,000. And I call the concurrency one. I say, hey, I want to let you know, offer just came in. We're going to be negotiating it. If your people want to buy it, if they can remove their contingency, they ought to buy this thing. Next thing you know, we sell it for $300,000. The other offer is $250,000. That's okay, because nothing you said is not true. You had another offer on the property, and you were going to start negotiating it. So you used something to create an urgency for this person to make the deal. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you a story about a 48-hour contingency, and this is the last thing I'm going to talk about. There's a lot of other things. Well, before I tell you, my last thing is, if you're working with contingencies, you need to talk to Jim or myself or your manager, Drew, about, help me with this. Make sure I do the right thing. Make sure I think about it properly. But I'm going to tell you the last part of this story. It had to do with the 48-hour bump. Sold a house in Silver Lake to an attorney. And he said, I want to do a contingency, 48 hours. I said, oh, okay. Market was hot. House still got shown. And he had his home in the market, too high, right? His house was too high, but you want the deal, right? So I'm working on it, and his is priced too high. It's getting a little bit of activity, but not much. He says, if I sell it, I do, I don't. So the house that he wrote the contingency on with the 48-hour bump, this is the way it worked. It was also, I can't remember now, but I think my listing. And I call him, I say, attorney so-and-so. I says, we wrote there's a contract written last night. It's an acceptable contract. And, I need to know what you're going to do. You got 48 hours. He goes, oh man, okay, let me think about it. So he waits to almost the end of the 48 hours. He says, you know what, I think I'm going to go ahead and remove my contingency and go ahead and purchase it. I said, oh, okay. So I call the other agent that has the offer on it. And I say, hey, I'm sorry. I know you knew there was a contingency on it. My guy's moving forward. He goes, crud. Okay. Goes out and starts showing another house to buy another house. I send the contingency over to the attorney. He gets it, or the removal of the contingency. He gets it, and I don't hear from him. So, attorneys are busy, right? So I hustle around. Another day goes by. Now it's 2 days. Now it's been 4 days since the original offer was written. Actually 5, because they wrote it the day before and presented it the next day. Now 5 days are gone. 48 hours goes by. I finally get a hold of him because I know he's going to buy it, right? I finally get a hold of him. He says, Gare, I've been thinking some more about it. Man, I don't want to remove the contingency right now. I said, well, we got rid of another offer on this thing because you said you were going to. I know, it's tough out there, isn't it? He goes, but you understand. I said, oh, call my seller. You like living in the house you're in? Because you're going to be there for a while. We got one more offer. And he did the same thing, and then it all expired, and the house never sold, and they fired me and got somebody else. You will never write a 48-hour contingency on my house. You either can buy it or you can't buy it, and that's a true story. So there's certain things that happen that change the way you do business, and that will never happen to me again. So those are real. That's why I don't like them. I'm not saying I've never done one, but not very often. So, and there may be exceptions, and there's exceptions to all rules. Thanks for coming to the class. I hope you got a feeling for it, understand it. and feel a little more comfortable doing them. Thanks.